morning sun filtered through the wide windows of a prestigious downtown hotel, casting a warm golden glow over the marble floors. The bustling atmosphere of a luxury hotel was in full swing. Bellhops hurried past with rolling luggage. Business professionals hastily typed away on their laptops, and guests sipped coffee at the bar, immersed in quiet conversations. Among them, one figure moved through the lobby with a certain ease that set him apart from the others. Keanu Reeves entered the lobby unaccompanied, a lone traveler in an otherwise polished world. His attire was simple, a plain black t-shirt, well-worn jeans, and a pair of sneakers that had clearly seen a lot of use. He wasn't dressed in designer clothing, nor did he carry any visible symbols of wealth or fame. His hair was casually styled, and his face held an air of quiet humility that made him blend seamlessly into the crowd. There was something about his presence that felt grounded, calm, as though the entire world could swirl around him, and he'd remain unaffected. But there was one thing that stood out about Keanu's appearance, one detail that could not go unnoticed, the small, delicate silver cross that hung from a chain around his neck. It was a simple accessory, worn with such ease, but to anyone who looked closely, it told a deeper story, one that spoke to resilience and faith. Keanu moved through the lobby with a quiet confidence that came not from arrogance, but from years of facing the complexities of life and emerging stronger for it. He walked toward the front desk to check in. A couple of hotel staff members glanced his way, unsure whether they were seeing a celebrity or just another guest. Keanu didn't seem to notice, or perhaps he simply didn't mind. He approached the desk with a calm, composed demeanor, his presence only adding to the sense of peacefulness that permeated the hotel. The receptionist, a young woman named Emily, looked up from her screen and froze for just a second. Her eyes widened, and a flicker of recognition passed across her face, though it was fleeting. She quickly regained her professional composure and greeted him warmly, but her voice was a little less steady than she had intended. "Good morning, sir. How can I assist you today?" Emily asked, glancing at his reservation. "I'm here to check in," Keanu replied, his voice soft yet confident, offering a polite smile. He handed her his ID and reservation confirmation, and she quickly processed the check-in. Everything seemed to be proceeding normally, but Emily couldn't help but feel a strange unease. She had seen celebrities before, but something about Keanu Reeves was different. He was unassuming, his appearance was humble, and yet there was an undeniable aura of greatness around him. Though it wasn't about the usual wealth or fame, it was something deeper. As she handed him the room key, Emily couldn't help but glance at the silver crucifix hanging from his neck. For some reason, that symbol seemed to have an effect on her that she couldn't quite explain. It felt like it didn't belong here, in a place where everything was meant to be immaculate, polished, and neutral. She shook her head slightly, trying to shake off the thought. Keanu thanked her, his voice warm, and walked toward the elevators without any sign of the discomfort she had subtly projected. He didn't carry himself as though he were a superstar. Instead, he simply existed in the space around him, present, unpretentious. But Emily wasn't the only one who had noticed the cross. Some of the other guests in the lobby glanced up, their eyes flicking to the symbol and then to the man who wore it. There was something in their gaze, a mixture of curiosity, confusion, and for some, an unspoken judgment. As Keanu entered the elevator, Emily's mind lingered on the brief exchange, her thoughts swirling. She had heard about the small things that could disrupt the perfect atmosphere of a high-class hotel. Even the tiniest deviation could break the illusion of harmony that so many guests valued. A glance at the crucifix had created a spark of discomfort within her, one that she was unwilling to ignore. The elevator doors closed behind Keanu, and he rode up to his floor with a quiet determination. But unbeknownst to him, the thoughts of others were already turning. Emily had begun to question if that cross, visible and unafraid, had the potential to make guests uncomfortable. Her mind wandered to the policies in place, the unwritten rules that were supposed to ensure that every guest felt at ease. Every space felt neutral. After a few minutes, Emily went to the back office, her fingers tapping anxiously on the desk as she looked at the hotel's guest policy. She had seen much more conspicuous symbols in the past: corporate logos, national flags, even political slogans, but none of them had ever stirred something inside her like this. She wasn't sure why the cross seemed so out of place in that moment. Was it the symbol itself, or was it something about Keanu that made her feel uneasy? Despite her internal struggle, Emily made up her mind. She knew what needed to be done. Back on the floor, she watched as Keanu strolled down the hallway toward his room. She approached him calmly, but her posture had shifted, more deliberate than before. She had rehearsed this moment in her mind. She would ask him, politely but firmly, to remove the cross, or at least tuck it in. It wasn't about his faith, she told herself. It was about the hotel's commitment to providing an environment where everyone could feel equally comfortable. No exceptions. "Excuse me, Mr. Reeves," she said as she caught up to him. "I wanted to discuss something briefly. It's our policy to ask guests to be mindful of the type of religious symbols they wear while staying with us. We want to maintain a neutral environment for all of our guests. Would you mind tucking that in for the duration of your stay?" Keanu turned to her slowly, a calm expression on his face. His demeanor didn't change. "I'm sorry, but I'm not sure I understand," he said, his voice even yet firm. Emily felt a flush of discomfort rise in her chest. She had rehearsed the words in her head so many times, but now, standing in front of the man himself, they felt different. "It's not that we're against religious expression," she continued, trying to maintain professionalism. "It's just that some guests may find it distracting or uncomfortable." Keanu paused, considering her words. "I've stayed in many places," he said slowly, his voice never rising. "I've worn this necklace on flights, in hotels, in many different places, and never once has it caused an issue. I wear this cross because it's a part of who I am. It's not for show, and it's not meant to provoke anyone." Emily hesitated. She wasn't prepared for this response. She had expected resistance, but not a quiet strength that seemed to speak directly to the heart of the matter. She pressed on, however, trying to keep control of the situation. "I understand, Mr. Reeves, but the hotel strives to maintain a particular atmosphere. We just ask that guests be respectful of the space they're in." Keanu looked at her with a calm, unwavering gaze. "You're asking me to hide something that's been a part of my life for many years. Something that's helped me through more difficult times than I care to count. I wear this cross as a symbol of strength, not as a tool for division." Emily opened her mouth, but the words caught in her throat. She had expected an argument, perhaps even a scene. But Keanu's response was measured, profound. It was as though he had turned the tables on her, not by raising his voice, but by simply standing firm in his beliefs. The silence between them deepened, and for a moment Emily realized that it wasn't Keanu who had caused discomfort, but the discomfort she was feeling within herself. A few guests who had been watching the exchange now lowered their gaze, no longer hiding the fact that they were listening in. Keanu, sensing that the situation had escalated beyond his control, didn't make a scene. He simply stated, "I will not hide who I am, not for anyone or anything." Emily's cheeks flushed as she tried to regain her composure. She had wanted to defuse the situation, to make things go smoothly. But now she felt the weight of what she was asking. It wasn't just a cross. It was a symbol of identity, a reminder of Keanu's resilience, and his ability to remain true to himself despite the forces around him. The conversation lingered in the air as Emily realized she had made a misstep. The guests in the hallway, sensing the tension, exchanged glances, and for a moment there was an unspoken shift in the atmosphere. It was no longer just about a necklace. It was about respecting others for who they were, without judgment, without expectation. Keanu didn't look for validation or applause. He simply continued on his way, offering no further words, but his presence spoke volumes. Emily stood there, frozen for a moment, caught between the policies she had been trained to uphold and the realization that true professionalism wasn't about control. It was about accepting and respecting the humanity of others. Later that evening, after the guests had retired to their rooms, Emily sat in her office, her thoughts racing. She had been tasked with maintaining a certain order in the hotel, but in the process she had allowed herself to lose sight of the true meaning of hospitality, making people feel welcome, seen, and heard. She picked up her phone and looked up Keanu Reeves. His career, his reputation for kindness, and his ability to remain grounded despite his fame filled her screen. She felt a stirring of respect for the man who had taught her more in a few moments than she had learned in years of customer service training. She knew what she had to do. The next day, Emily reached out to Keanu's management team. She sent an email apologizing for her actions and expressing her regret for not being more mindful of who he was and what he stood for. It was a small gesture, but one that she hoped might show her sincerity. Keanu never responded, but Emily didn't expect him to. The lesson had already been learned, not through words, but through the quiet, unwavering strength that came from simply being who you are. And so, in the years that followed, Emily found herself carrying that lesson with her, not just in her work, but in every aspect of her life. In the face of judgment, kindness and strength could create change, not by forcing it, but by living it. Keanu Reeves had in his usual way taught her what it meant to be